We're here at Sachs Insights and with Tammy Sachs. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And we want to talk a little bit about getting buy-in for UX research. So my first question to you is, why is it so hard to get sponsorship for UX research?
Well, in our case, because we're a consultancy, the irony is that people who call us have already bought in to research. They just often are either coming in too late in the process to affect change, which is happening less than it used to. Everything that we used to get was, we're just coming to do a disaster check, which, we meant disaster. And the other one is that they don't have a language, because a lot of the people that are asking us to do research have never done it. Like we're doing work right now with a design firm, like a real experienced design firm that creates store models and museum models and things that are typically not tested. So they want to do it, but they have no language to even identify the problem. So because we're a consultancy and oftentimes the phone rings, that's not the problem. The problem is more getting them to do it earlier and getting them to articulate what success looks like.
Do you also have projects where there's also a design component, or you only do research?
We do believe that, I think that because most designers are visual, and you really need to know your audience. Like, there's one client that we have where our entire report is that we take screenshots and we annotate the screenshots, and that is the report, because they want to know red is polarizing, or this much red conveys the brand, this much red conveys danger and overwhelms text, or this feels on brand, this feels off brand, or this button needs to move here. And so we use pictures as often as we possibly can.
All right, so that leads me to the next question.
We try to, like, what I'm saying is that we try to create an output that that speaks to that audience, because we want to empower and embody the consumer in their work.
All right. So many researchers struggle with deliverables. What should we give our stakeholders as the result of this study? What should they hold on to? So what are some more deliverables that you found to be working well for you?
Well, since the beginning of our company, it was the funny thing is, I told you earlier, I started at Citibank and I was 26 years old, and I had only done marketing research, and I came there and they said N equals 5 and 75% of the people agree on the subjects. I was like, what? They're people, they're not subjects. So when I started to do research, there were big stakes, there were big bloody decisions. Should we use this technology or that technology, this screen, that screen technology? So I, from the beginning, used video. Because I felt, and I still to this day, for big strategic issues, and I can give you an example, and for very tactical issues, find that video is very, very compelling. Not always useful. If you have agile teams that are moving quickly, I think that brainstorming sessions where everyone walks out of the room with a clear direction and not 10 different directions, that's the answer. It's a brainstorming session and go. Okay, brainstorming session, we agreed to these 10 things, boom. Particularly when you're doing iterative flights, that's the only way to do it. However, when you're trying to get buy-in from corporate, and corporate is in Japan, or you're trying to get buy-in to a design that has to serve a global audience, video is essential. If you're trying to show senior management that the fundamental buy flow is so sick, I don't want to use the C word, but it has cancer, or it looks, it's basically, there are several places which I call hit the wall moments. Nothing like 45 minutes of showing a patent attorney trying to buy a phone plan.
45-minute video.
I'm sorry, 45-second video of somebody trying to, or 3 minutes, however it take, like you showed a piece of video before, you take somebody who says, hi, my name is Tom, I'm a patent attorney at White Law, and blah, 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 and I want to buy a phone plan for my wife and 3 kids, and okay, go do it. And the guy starts to sweat profusely and says, I think I'm smart, I know I'm smart, I've done this before. And and he sees branded terms, he doesn't know what they are. If you want to really show management that you've built a site for your consumers, your customers, and not your prospects, nothing like 3 minutes of video among somebody who's undeniably smart and undeniably an online purchaser to bang it out.
So about videos, they're kind of like the news. It pretty much depends on how you edit them, because you can, project your opinion by editing your video. So how much do you, show facts in videos compared to editorial, showing your opinion as well?
I guess maybe I think I'm a purist. Like I always say, I don't need to repent on Yom Kippur because I have nothing to repent for. I think that we're very objective. I think it really depends. I'll give you an example. We once did a project with a very, very dictatorial stakeholder who was the boss, and we said 26 people, when we tested this design among 26 people, 24 out of 26 preferred version A when asked how much, and then we actually showed 24 people saying extremely. I call that qualitative, because we really wanted to drive the point home that this is qualitatively absolutely, and it's fact. And I think in our instance, we're not an internal client or an external client. We have no point of view or agenda. Our agenda is to move in the right direction. So for example, you can't get people's attention. People say, I only want 1 minute. Now, 5 minutes could feel like 30 seconds, or 30 seconds could feel like 5 minutes. So the idea is that you want to build a feeling of it. If you really believe that a piece of a finding is so critical and so important that it should absolutely drive design. Like, for example, if they're trying to get people to sign up for a CRM program and there is fundamentally no reason to believe to do that, there's no motivation on the homepage to do that, you absolutely have to show 10 people in a row looking around and saying, make that point very viscerally, and then follow that up with, so is there any way that you see that you could sign up? Yeah, it's right there. Why didn't you click on it? There's no reason to do that. And then you go a step further and you say, okay, humor me. I hear what you're saying. I don't want to negate you. You don't see any reason that you would sign up here. You don't see any value. Click on it. And then they read what's there and they say, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then at the very end, we'll say, now that you've seen this whole experience, if you were to tell them 3 pieces of advice about what you would do differently at the beginning to influence your opinion that you had at the end, what would they be? And they tell you, and if everybody says, what I would do is say these 3 things up front because they're so compelling. If I'd have known that, and to me that's not lying, it's just storytelling. Okay. And a good story is a good story, and a boring story is a boring story. It's how you tell a story. So storytelling involves some shaping. Like, for example, if you want to build momentum, there's a way to do that with video. To me, it's a communication strategy. I think that we try not to start with something very negative because that's to your butt point. If I start by saying, if basically the answer is the baby's ugly and you have to start all over again, we start with video that says that the concept is very interesting and the idea of something is very interesting, and then we start to build. So to me, I view video as storytelling, not shaping the truth. I don't know.
So many UX researchers struggle with people who don't respect or don't understand UX research processes. What would be your advice to these people?
One, I think you have to prove yourself on a small project, and if they ask you something very tactical, I think this tees off of, or riffs off of one of the things that you said before. If they ask you, what we really want to know is where's the best place to put accessories in the checkout cart, and the answer is that once people with the checkout cart, they're never going to add accessories because they're ready to check out, you can you have to answer that question first before you answer another question you think is more strategic. Say, if you were in charge, where would you want to buy accessories? And they say, oh, right here. I would put it right above the buy button. Oh, here's a piece of paper. Draw me what you would do. And everybody draws the same thing. So first you answer their question, because if you don't do that, you're disrespectful. And then you show that you have additional value, and that is that you could actually help them build something. So no, I'm not a designer, but we have had 12 people design something that is a variant of the same thing, and you see in their affect how engaged they would be had they encountered that then. Because once you buy the doll, you want to dress the doll.
All right. Can you share a story about a very difficult client who didn't want to do research or didn't want to listen to research results or act upon them?
Oh, yes.
And I don't want to get you in trouble. So
No. And my opinion is that nobody doesn't want to hear what consumers have to say.
Okay.
I think the issue that I'm seeing the most, and I'll speak to e-commerce because it's the world that I live in most, and where I'm seeing the worst kinds of problems is, just back to that shopping cart thing, is that silos have happened on a transactional level. Like, this team is responsible for the product development page. This team, let's take e-service. Let's not take e-service overall about, okay, we're getting 55 million calls to the call center. How can we reduce the length or type of the call? Mm-hmm. They don't look at the problem holistically. They break people up into modular teams. So you're in charge of FAQs, and you're in charge of alerts, and you're in charge of wizards. And so you tell the wizard team that if they would embed some FAQs there, they could actually serve two masters, and they say that's not I don't get evaluated on that, and there's nowhere to go with that. That is one of my frustrations, and I think that ultimately for our business, I don't want to work in those environments, because that stakeholder is saying to me, I know, and you're right, and I don't get rewarded for that. So if I do that, I might even get fired. And I think you need to pick your battles. This is that we were talking about before. It's like, just like you don't want to fight to get to the table, that's never our fight, because the phone rings, they want us at the table. The issue is if you have somebody who's fundamentally unempowered, or you have a compensation system that is created in a way that does not honor or encourage people to break silo. In fact, it discourages them or punishes them. That's, I think, the most difficult for me, because the person is looking at you and they're saying, I know. And then you really have to just, I think, try to push it farther up the line or engage other stakeholders, and that's a large problem. That's a consultant's perspective.
Yep, that's why I'm here. Tell me about a situation where you decided to stop working with someone because they just didn't get it.
That.
Mm-hmm. But he was, he got it, but he was just,
I like to see results. Mm-hmm. One thing I do, you know what I did in that case? We actually did something quantitative, mm-hmm. where this was great. We decided no more usability testing. And the client and I were in cahoots on this. We said, we'll do like a survey gizmo, but we gave people 16 buttons and we gave them tasks. So it just said, let's say you wanted to do X. Which of these 16 buttons would you press? And they pressed it. And we found out that the people who picked the wrong choice were almost as confident as people who picked the right choice that they were right, which said to everybody that it is so confusing, this interface is so confusing that, yes, the right answer, meaning the answer you're supposed to pick, is a little bit more compelling than the wrong answer, but not by enough, so that maybe 55% of the people are going to go to the right place and 45% are going to go to the wrong place. So you better have a loop back to the right place for the large minority.
Right.
So you try to change the methodology. Fundamentally, I think the one thing that because I think that what we do is very collaborative, and I went into this discipline because I'm a marketer and a marketing researcher, and I'm all about the brand. I went into this because I love building things. I'm essentially like a builder, and I get like really gratified by watching something grow and build. So I feel like if you feel like you fundamentally can't go any further, you can't build it, I don't want to be part of it. And the other thing is that I won't accept, and this is just maybe a cultural thing, because I left corporate America because I don't like organizational abuse. So I feel that if I'm working with a client that's abusive to one of my team members, or in any way is condescending in a way that I feel is inappropriate, I'd rather, my asset internally is more valuable than my asset externally. And I think you also have to set a tone, back to what I was saying culturally, that, if you're not a boss that if you don't defend the idea, or if you don't defend the person, you don't have any credibility or trust within the organization. So I think you have to walk away.
Okay.
And I love the 5-5-5. I believe in the power of yes. I think when you say to people yes, that's the beginning of a conversation. And when you say no, it's basically the end of the conversation.
Yeah. Same thing with smiling. A lot of people ask me, what do I recommend to people to them when they go interview? Just smile. And it's the same.
It's a mirror.
It's just, yeah. It's
my smile.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I think that one piece of advice that I give to all of our researchers, which I fundamentally think, well, everyone thinks their researchers are the best, but I think our researchers are incredible, is a high degree of empathy. I believe that, and I always say to people when I talk to them and I'm pitching, I say, think of yourself. I'm sitting in a room full of people that are technologically more advanced than your average bear. I bet if your wife or your daughter leaned over your shoulder while you were doing something, you would become so self-conscious you would make a mistake. It's like if someone stares at you when you're putting your key in the keyhole, you'll drop it sometimes because you become self-conscious. Think of every participant that walks into the lab as somebody who's going to drop the key. I don't care if you have a PhD in nuclear physics, you are going to feel self-conscious as if you are not a lab rat, but some variation of that. So the degree to which you reverse that out and use empathy and body language is so subtle, and I don't think that most people really understand that. It's an extension of the smile.
So what I'm trying to do is, with my talks and my practice and my book, is to create the same thing. We're sometimes very, very good at empathizing with users, but very bad at empathizing with the people we work with.
Right.
With the product managers, the marketeers, the engineering leaders.
Right.
So I'm trying to at least make us more aware of the fact that they have pressures too.
Yeah.
And they can drop the key sometimes as well. So we need to really understand what they're going through if we want to affect the way they treat us with accepting what we are, what we have to say, what we bring, what we...
And I'll say one thing, and I can say that it's branded, and this is not true to market research, user experience research, but it's to everything. But Chase Credit Cards has, like you do, one researcher is part of every team, in a cross-functional team, so they sit on the floor with those people. They know what market share looks like. They know what the competitive environment is. They know what's keeping the product manager up at night. They know what the executive team is expecting of that person, etc. So there's much more of a trust in that person and a credibility of that person because that person shares their reality. And I think that that is really essential. It's not something about your model. I always say walk a mile in my shoes. And that's why I think that the best external consultants are people that have been on the inside, because when you've been the person who said, I know the reason it's like that is because the server's slow, or it's very easy to come in and say, your response time is too slow, or your font is too small, and how you have to fight so hard for that change, and that you have a list of changes that are 15, and that might be number 16 and 17 on the list. So I think that whole walk a mile in my shoes is huge.
All right.
We good?
I think that's it. We're very good. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks to yours. I really